Over the past 5 years, we have been studying the implications of political violence on the psychological development of both Israeli and Palestinian children. This paper examines the role the media may have taken in these processes. Why media? Well, over the years we have witnessed two major changes. More children are watching the news, and news content has become more violent and more graphic. Thus, given the fact that children are more influenced by real rather than fictional content, these changes should cause alarm. People watch lots and lots of TV. That includes our kids. Some violence is unrealistic, but our kids are also exposed to real political violence. There was even work done on children who were exposed to a major event, like 9/11. But we are interested in the daily routine, in chronic exposure, over and over again on a daily basis. Could this exposure increase post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and aggressive behavior? We believe it could. Our assumption is based on 3 known facts. First, our exposure to political violence in real life causes PTSD and aggression. Second, exposure to major terror attacks on TV increases PTSD. Thirdly, unrealistic violence can cause aggression. More so, we suggest that there are kids who are even more sensitive to the ill effects of violence. Youth with a tendency towards aggression, who are chronically exposed to political violence, become even more aggressive. The same goes for PTS. It turns out that children with higher symptoms, who are exposed to violence, show a more severe reaction. In contrast, youth with a lower tendency towards aggression or PTS will show less of a reaction when exposed to violent content. To answer these questions, we conducted a longitudinal study in Israel and the Palestinian Authority. We followed 1,500 children for 3 years. 600 of them were Palestinians, 450 were Israeli Jews, and 450 were Israeli Arabs. Each year, we interviewed children and parents in their homes. We asked them about their viewing patterns and their exposure to political violence in real life. We also asked if they experienced other types of violence, in school, at home, or in their communities. Then we asked them about indicators of PTSD, how they feel. Can they sleep at night? Do they have flashbacks? Lastly, we asked them and their parents about fighting, cursing, violent acts they may have committed. The study was longitudinal, meaning we could test causality. 2 alternative explanations have been debated for a long time. Either that children who show more violent behavior are more attracted to violent media content, therefore violent behavior leads to watching more violence, or that children who watch violent media content are influenced by it, and as a result, their behavior tends to be more violent. Therefore, watching more violence leads to more violent behavior. When we look at exposure to political violence, we can see that the majority of our subjects was exposed to violent events via the media. Exposure via the media is far more frequent than exposure in everyday life. This is true even in countries where political violence is a daily experience. The first 2 hypotheses argued for a causal relation between exposure and PTS or aggression. To test them, we ran a cross-lag analysis over time. The first thing to note is the stability of exposure, PTS, and aggression over time. Testing the effect of exposure, the result was a very strong, significant effect. And yet, we do find evidence for the opposite directionality as well. However, the results suggest that the effect exposure has on maladjustment behavior is more significant than the effect maladjustment behavior has on exposure. Next, our second set of hypotheses probed into the role of initial tendencies. Here we used a regression model with interaction. As you can see from these 2 charts, in both cases, PTS and aggression, children and youth with higher initial level of maladjustment behavior were far more influenced from chronic exposure than those with low levels of initial symptoms. Therefore, all of our hypotheses were confirmed. So to conclude, although violent media content stood in the center of public attention for many years, it seems that violent news somehow went under the radar. This is despite the changes occurring over the years, which made youth highly exposed to such content. We believe that this type of violent content should not be overlooked given its ill effects. The fact that such effects are demonstrated among children who witness political violence in their immediate surroundings speaks even louder for the importance of the effects of the media. Theoretically, our results support the idea of a reinforcing spiral. That is, initial tendencies, dictated viewing preferences that strengthen initial tendencies. Thus, aggressive youth become even more aggressive as a result of exposure, and the same goes to those suffering from early symptoms of PTS. More so, we believe that when looking at the results of many studies done on the effects of violent content over the years, a generalized pattern emerges. There is a resemblance in our results for both PTS and aggression. Moreover, our results on political violence resemble the results of others who analyzed the effects of fictional violence. All suggest the same reinforcing spiral model that goes beyond genre and is applicable to different types of behaviors.